I always thought my father was a hero. Not the kind you see in movies with capes and superpowers, but the real kind. The kind who works 16-hour days to build something from nothing. The kind who remembers every detail about your life, who shows up to every milestone, who knows exactly what to say when your world is falling apart. Richard Monroe, my dad, self-made millionaire, philanthropist, pillar of our community. The man who could light up any room just by walking into it. That night, his 60th birthday celebration at the Hartford Country Club. I remember standing in that ballroom surrounded by crystal chandeliers and people in expensive clothes, and all I could feel was pride. Pure, overwhelming pride that this man was my father. The mayor was at the podium, going through Dad's accomplishments like he was reading off some impossible bucket list that would take most people 3 lifetimes to complete. 50 college scholarships for kids who couldn't afford tuition. A brand new children's wing at Hartford Hospital with the Monroe name etched in stone above the entrance. Donations to food banks, homeless shelters, youth programs, the list just kept going. I lifted my phone to capture the moment. Dad stood there in his tailored tuxedo, silver hair perfectly styled, wearing that humble smile he always had when people praised him. He never sought the spotlight, but somehow it always found him. That's what made him different, I thought. That's what made him special. Your father is an extraordinary man, Mrs. Peterson whispered beside me. She was one of Mom's friends from the garden club, dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. We're so lucky to have him in our community. I nodded, throat tight with emotion. I know. I'm lucky he's my dad. The mayor continued, his voice booming through the speakers. Richard Monroe didn't just build a business. He built futures. He built hope. He built a legacy that will outlive all of us in this room. The applause was thunderous. I watched my father walk up to the stage, shaking hands, accepting the crystal plaque, and I remember thinking, this is what success looks like. This is what a life well lived looks like. When he took the microphone, the room fell silent. Everyone leaned in. My father had that effect on people. When he spoke, you listened. Thank you all for being here tonight, he began, his voice warm and genuine. I have to tell you, this wasn't necessary. The real reward has always been the work itself. The people we help, the difference we make. Classic dad. Deflecting praise, making it about others. But if you're going to throw me a party, he continued with that charming smile that could disarm anyone, I suppose I should at least enjoy the cake. Laughter rippled through the crowd. He had them in the palm of his hand. Seriously though, none of this would be possible without the most important people in my life. His eyes found Mom in the crowd, then me. Margaret, my rock for 35 years. And Sarah, my beautiful daughter, who makes me proud every single day. Everything I've done for you too. To build something worthy of the Monroe name. To leave behind something that matters. I felt tears prick my eyes. Mom reached over and squeezed my hand. Her palm was cold, I remember that. At the time, I thought she was just emotional. To family, Dad raised his champagne glass. To community, and to making the world a little better than we found it. To Richard, someone shouted. And suddenly everyone was on their feet, glasses raised, applause echoing off the high ceilings. I watched him up there, basking in the adoration, and I felt so incredibly grateful. Grateful that this man was my father. Grateful that I'd learned everything I knew about integrity, hard work, and compassion from him. After the speeches, I made my way through the crowd to congratulate him. People kept stopping me along the way. Your father is a saint, Mr. Thompson from the hospital board told me. A true gentleman, added Mrs. Chun, whose son had received one of Dad's scholarships. When I finally reached him, he pulled me into a tight hug. He smelled like expensive cologne and mint, his signature scent. There's my girl, he said, holding me at arm's length to look at me. You look absolutely stunning tonight. Dad, that speech. I started, but he waved it off. Just the truth, sweetheart. You and your mother are my whole world. Never forget that. I won't, I promised. He kissed my forehead, the way he'd done since I was a little girl. I love you, Sarah, more than you'll ever know. I love you too, Dad. If someone had told me then that in 3 weeks, I'd be staring at evidence of his crimes, that I'd discover he'd ruined lives, destroyed families, lived a lie for decades, I would have laughed in their face. Impossible. Not my father. Not Richard Monroe. But that's the thing about perfect facades. They're designed to hide what's underneath. And my father's facade? It was a masterpiece. Built carefully over decades, maintained with precision, polished until it gleamed so brightly that no one, especially not me, thought to look beneath the surface. I spent the rest of that night celebrating him, dancing with him, listening to story after story about his generosity, his brilliance, his golden heart. And I believed every word. 3 weeks later, everything changed. 3 weeks later, I found the thumb drive hidden in his office, and my entire world shattered like crystal hitting marble. But I'm getting ahead of myself. That night, at his 60th birthday party, surrounded by people who loved and respected him, I was still his adoring daughter, still blind, still innocent, still believing in the lie. Hashtag the silent betrayal part 2. The accidental discovery. 3 weeks after that perfect night, I came home to help Mom with spring cleaning. I know spring cleaning sounds so mundane, so normal, but that's exactly how the worst discoveries happen, isn't it? Not during some dramatic confrontation or planned investigation. Just on a random Saturday afternoon when you're trying to be a good daughter and help your mom organize the chaos in your dad's home office. Sarah, honey, could you start with those filing cabinets? Mom called from the hallway. Your father keeps saying he'll digitize everything, but you know how he is with technology. I laughed. Dad was brilliant with people and numbers, but put him in front of anything more complicated than email and he was lost. It was one of his endearing qualities, the powerful businessman who still asked me to help him with his iPhone. The office was exactly what you'd expect from a man like Richard Monroe. Rich mahogany desk, leather chairs, walls lined with awards and photos. Pictures of us at every stage of my life. My college graduation, family vacations, Dad shaking hands with governors and senators. Everything perfectly curated to tell the story of a successful, loving family man. I started with the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet. Tax returns from years ago, property deeds, insurance documents, boring stuff that made my eyes glaze over. But I kept going, creating piles for keep, scan, and shred. That's when I found it. Wedged behind a hanging folder, almost invisible unless you were really digging around, was a small manila envelope. No label, no markings, just tucked away like someone wanted to hide it but couldn't quite bring themselves to destroy it. I almost put it in the shred pile. Almost. But something made me open it. Inside was a thumb drive. Just a plain black USB drive, the kind you could buy at any electronics store. But there was a tiny piece of masking tape on it with 2 letters written in Dad's handwriting. JM. JM. I didn't know any JM in Dad's life. Mom, I called out. Do you know who JM is? Like, in Dad's business contacts or something? She appeared in the doorway, holding a box of old Christmas decorations. JM? No, honey, doesn't ring a bell. Why? Just found something with those initials. Probably nothing. She shrugged and disappeared back into the hallway. But I couldn't shake the weird feeling in my gut. Why would Dad hide a thumb drive? He had dozens of them in his desk drawer, all properly labeled with client names and project codes. This one was different, hidden, anonymous. I should have just asked him about it. Should have called him right then. He was at the golf course with his buddies, and said, "Hey Dad, found a random thumb drive. What's on it?" Normal people would do that. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the location, hidden behind files he never touched. Maybe it was the way my mom's expression had flickered at his birthday party when she said he was one of a kind. Or maybe it was just instinct, some unconscious part of my brain that had picked up on tiny inconsistencies over the years and was now screaming at me to pay attention. I slipped the thumb drive into my pocket. For the rest of the afternoon, I helped Mom sort through boxes and old paperwork, but my mind was elsewhere. The thumb drive felt like it was burning a hole in my jeans. What was I doing? This was my father. My hero. There was probably nothing on it except old business presentations or backup files. But then why hide it? By the time I left my parents' house that evening, I'd convinced myself I was being ridiculous, paranoid. I'd plug it into my laptop at home, see a bunch of boring spreadsheets, feel stupid for even wondering, and that would be the end of it. I lived in a small apartment downtown, about 20 minutes from my parents' place. I'd moved back to Hartford after finishing my MBA, taken a job at a marketing firm, and been enjoying being close to family again. My apartment was modest but mine. Exposed brick, plants everywhere, string lights that made everything feel cozy. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened my laptop, and stared at the thumb drive sitting on my coffee table. "This is stupid," I said out loud to my cat, Pepper, who was completely uninterested in my moral dilemma. I'm invading his privacy over nothing, but I plugged it in anyway. The drive opened. 3 folders appeared on my screen: transactions, communications, and personal. My heart started beating faster. Why would Dad need to hide transactions? He had accountants, legal teams, everything was always above board. That's what he always told me. Do everything by the book, keep your conscience clear, sleep well at night. I clicked on transactions. The folder was full of Excel files, but none of them would open. Every single one was password protected. I tried a few obvious ones: Mom's birthday, my birthday, their anniversary. Nothing worked. The communications folder was the same. PDF files all locked. Email exports encrypted. My hands were shaking now. Normal people don't encrypt their files. Normal people don't hide thumb drives behind old tax returns. I clicked on personal. This folder opened. Inside were photos. Dozens of them. The first one I clicked on made my blood run cold. It was my father, but not the father I knew. He was younger, maybe 20 years ago, standing in front of a house I'd never seen before. His arm was around a woman who wasn't my mother. She was pretty, blonde, smiling up at him with obvious affection. Could be an old girlfriend, I told myself. Before he met Mom. Totally innocent. But then I saw the next photo. Same woman, clearly years later. She was holding a baby, and my father was holding them both, looking at them the way he looked at Mom and me in our family photos. I felt like I couldn't breathe. The photos continued. Years of them. The woman and child, a boy growing older. Birthday parties. Christmas mornings. Beach vacations. An entire life documented in secret on a hidden thumb drive. There was a photo of the boy on a baseball field, maybe 10 years old, and my father was in the background, watching. Another of them at a restaurant, the boy laughing at something Dad was saying. The most recent photo was dated 8 months ago. The boy was a teenager now, maybe 15 or 16. He had my father's eyes. My father's smile. My brother. I had a brother I didn't know about. The room was spinning. I grabbed my phone, almost called my mother, almost called my father, almost called someone. Anyone who could explain this away. But I couldn't move. Couldn't think. Who was this woman? How long had this been going on? Did Mom know? Did anyone know? And more importantly, what else was my father hiding? I looked back at the laptop, at those encrypted files in the other folders. Whatever was in there, Dad had worked hard to protect it. Financial transactions he didn't want anyone to see. Communications he needed to hide. This wasn't just about another family. There was more. I could feel it. I sat there on my couch until 3 a.m., going through every photo, studying every detail, and feeling my entire understanding of my life crumble around me. The man I'd worshipped my entire life, the man who'd just been honored for his integrity and compassion, had been living a double life for at least 15 years. What else had he lied about? What else was buried in those encrypted files? I needed to know. I needed to see everything. And I knew exactly who could help me. Marcus Chun was the only person I could trust with this. We'd been friends since college, roommates junior year, and he'd gone on to become one of those tech geniuses who spoke in code and could hack into almost anything, though he'd kill me for using the word hack. He preferred security research. I called him at 7 in the morning, 3 hours after I'd finally collapsed into bed without sleeping. "Sarah, do you know what time it is?" His voice was groggy, annoyed. I need your help. It's important. Something in my tone must have gotten through because he was suddenly alert. What's wrong? Are you okay? Can you come over? Like now? And bring your laptop. 45 minutes later, Marcus was sitting on my couch, looking at the thumb drive like it might explode. Let me get this straight, he said slowly. You found this hidden in your dad's office, and you want me to decrypt encrypted files without his permission. Yes. Sarah, I know what it is, Marcus. But I found photos on here. My father has another family. A whole other life I knew nothing about. My voice cracked. And if he's hiding that, what else is he hiding? Marcus studied my face for a long moment, then sighed and opened his laptop. Okay, but we're just looking. If there's anything illegal on here, we're going straight to the police. Agreed. Agreed. He plugged in the thumb drive and his fingers flew across the keyboard, typing commands I didn't understand. Windows opened and closed. Lines of code scrolled past. I paced behind him, drinking my fourth cup of coffee, trying not to throw up from anxiety and exhaustion. These are some serious encryption protocols, Marcus muttered. Your dad didn't do this himself. He had professional help. Can you break it? Give me time. Time. I watched the clock tick away minutes, then hours. Marcus ordered food. Couldn't eat. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Lunch this week? Miss my girl. I stared at those words until they stopped making sense. It was almost 2 p.m. when Marcus suddenly sat back, his face pale. Got it, he said quietly. And he looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Pity. Sarah, maybe you should sit down. Just tell me. He turned the laptop toward me. I started with the transactions folder. These are offshore account records. Money movements. Lots of them. I looked at the spreadsheet on screen. Rows and rows of numbers, dates, account names. I don't understand. What am I looking at? Your father has been systematically embezzling money from his business partners. Look here, he pointed at a column. These are investments from clients. And here, another column. This is where the money actually went. Not into the projects he promised. Into shell companies, offshore accounts, his own pockets. My legs gave out. I sat down hard on the floor. How much? I whispered. From what I can see so far, at least 12 million. Probably more. $12 million. Stolen. From people who trusted him. Keep going, I said. Show me everything. Marcus clicked through files, his voice becoming clinical, detached. Probably the only way he could get through this. Here's an email thread with someone named David Patterson. He invested everything in a development project your dad was managing. $2 million. Life savings, retirement, his kids' college funds. The project was supposed to break ground in 2019. Did it? There was no project, Sarah. Your dad funneled the money through 3 different shell companies and it disappeared. Patterson sent dozens of emails asking for updates, getting more desperate. Your dad kept stalling, making excuses. Marcus opened another file. Last email from Patterson is from 2 years ago. He says he's lost everything. His wife left him. He can't afford his daughter's medical treatments. He's begging your father for even a fraction of the money back. What did Dad say? Nothing. He stopped responding. I felt bile rise in my throat. What happened to David Patterson? Marcus was quiet for a moment, then typed something into Google. His face fell. Sarah, tell me. He killed himself. 18 months ago. Left a note saying he'd failed his family. Couldn't live with the shame of losing everything. The room tilted. I barely made it to the bathroom before I vomited. When I came back, Marcus had his head in his hands. There's more. So much more. At least 7 other investors, all with similar stories. Families destroyed. Businesses bankrupted. And your dad just moved on to the next victim. How did no one catch him? He was smart about it. Never stole from the same person twice. Spread it out over years. Used his reputation to deflect suspicion. And look at this. He pulled up another file. He had help. There's correspondence with someone at his accounting firm who was helping cook the books. Split the profits. I thought about David Patterson's family. His daughter who couldn't get medical treatment. His wife who left. The man himself, so broken by my father's lies that he'd rather die than keep living. And my father? He'd gone to that birthday party 3 weeks ago and accepted an award for humanitarian service. There's something else, Marcus said quietly. In the communications folder. Emails between your dad and that woman from the photos. Her name is Jennifer Morrison. JM. That's what the initials meant. They've been together for 17 years. The kid's name is Ryan. Your dad bought them a house in Millbrook, about 2 hours from here. Pays for everything: mortgage, car, private school tuition. He visits them every other weekend. Tells your mom he's at conferences or golf trips. I thought about all those weekends Dad was away. All those business trips. The conferences I'd never questioned because why would I? He was Richard Monroe. Successful businessman. Of course he traveled for work. Does she know about us? I asked. Jennifer Morrison. Does she know about me and Mom? Marcus scrolled through emails. Yeah, she knows. There are emails where she's upset about it. Threatening to tell your mother. Your dad convinced her to stay quiet. Promised he'd leave your mom eventually. That was 15 years ago. He's been saying the same thing ever since. So Jennifer Morrison was a victim too, in her way. Believing lies. Waiting for promises that would never come true. And Ryan, my brother, growing up with a father who could only love him in secret. I want to see all of it, I said. Every file, every transaction, every lie. I want to know exactly what he's done. Marcus looked at me with concern. Sarah, this is heavy stuff. Maybe we should. Every single thing. We spent the next 6 hours going through the files. By the time we finished, I had a complete picture of who my father really was. Richard Monroe wasn't a philanthropist. He was a con man who used charity as a cover. Every generous donation, every scholarship, every hospital wing, it was all funded with stolen money. Blood money from the families he'd destroyed. Those 50 college scholarships? Paid for with David Patterson's retirement fund. The children's hospital wing? Built with money stolen from a small business owner named Maria Chun who lost her restaurant, her home, and custody of her son because she couldn't afford a lawyer after Dad bankrupted her. Every good deed was tainted. Every act of kindness was a lie designed to protect his reputation and give him cover to keep stealing. What are you going to do? Marcus asked as the sun began setting. I looked at the external hard drive where we'd copied everything. Every file. Every photo. Every piece of evidence. I don't know yet, I said, but that wasn't true. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I was going to destroy him. Not impulsively. Not emotionally. I was going to be smart about this. Strategic. My father had spent decades building his perfect facade, carefully constructing the myth of Richard Monroe, beloved community leader. And I was going to tear it down, piece by piece, until everyone saw what I saw. But first, I had to keep pretending. Had to be the loving daughter. Had to smile at family dinners and laugh at his jokes and keep my rage buried so deep he'd never see it coming. Sarah, Marcus said carefully, whatever you're thinking, I need you to do something for me. I interrupted. Don't tell anyone about this. Not yet. I need time. Time for what? I looked at him, and I saw his expression change as he realized what I was planning. Time to find all his victims. Time to document everything. Time to build a case so airtight that when I finally expose him, there won't be any doubt, any escape, any way for him to lie his way out of it. That's not revenge, Marcus said quietly. That's justice. Maybe it's both. My phone buzzed. Another text from Dad. Honey, you didn't respond about lunch. Everything okay? I picked up my phone and typed back, sorry Dad, crazy day at work. Lunch Wednesday? His response was immediate. Perfect. My treat. Love you, sweetheart. I stared at those words, love you, and felt absolutely nothing. The first crack in my perfect world had appeared the moment I found that thumb drive. Now it was time to shatter everything else. Hashtag the silent betrayal part 4. The deeper dive. Wednesday came faster than I wanted it to. I stood in front of my mirror for 20 minutes that morning, practicing my smile. The loving daughter smile. The everything is normal smile. It felt like wearing a mask made of glass. Fragile, fake, ready to shatter at any moment. But I had to be perfect. One slip, one wrong look, and Dad would know something was off. He didn't build an empire on lies without learning how to read people. I chose a light blue dress, his favorite color, on me. Put on the pearl earrings he'd given me for my college graduation. Became exactly who he expected to see. The restaurant was Antonio's, our place. We'd been coming here since I was 10 years old. Antonio himself greeted us at the door, massive smile, arms wide. The Monroes, my favorite family. He kissed both my cheeks, shook Dad's hand. Your usual table, yes? You know us too well, Dad said with that charming laugh that used to make me feel safe. We sat in the corner booth, the one with the view of the garden. Dad ordered wine, a bottle of the expensive Barolo he loved. I wondered if it was purchased with David Patterson's money, or Maria Chen's. How many stolen dollars had we consumed over the years at family dinners, thinking we were just enjoying the rewards of hard work? You look tired, sweetheart, Dad said, studying my face. Everything okay at work? Just busy, I lied smoothly. Big campaign launching next month. That's my girl. Always giving 100%. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. His touch made my skin crawl, but I squeezed back, smiled. I learned from the best, I said, and watched him beam with pride. We talked about nothing important. Mom's garden club, his golf game, the new restaurant opening downtown. I laughed at his jokes, asked about his upcoming business trip. The one I now knew was actually a weekend with Jennifer and Ryan. Boston conference, he said without missing a beat. Boring regulatory stuff. I'll be back Sunday evening. Tell me about it, I said. I had to sit through a 3-hour compliance meeting last week. Thought I'd die of boredom. He laughed. We clinked glasses. I drank wine paid for with blood money and pretended everything was fine. But inside I was taking notes. Mental notes. Every lie, every detail, every piece of information I could use later. After lunch, he hugged me tight in the parking lot. I'm proud of you, Sarah. You know that, right? I know, Dad. You're going to do great things. You've got integrity. That's rare these days. I almost laughed. Almost broke right there. But I held it together. Thanks, Dad. Love you. Love you too, sweetheart. I watched him drive away in his Mercedes, and the moment he was out of sight, my hands started shaking so badly I could barely get my keys in the ignition. That night, I began my real work. I'd already decided what I needed to do. Find Dad's victims, document their stories, build an airtight case. But I had to be smart about it. Careful. If anyone mentioned to Dad that his daughter was asking questions, the whole thing would fall apart. I started with David Patterson. His widow, Linda Patterson, was living in a small apartment across town. I found her address through public records. Sat outside her building for 2 hours, working up the courage to knock on her door. When she answered, I almost lost my nerve. She looked exhausted, older than her 48 years. Dark circles under her eyes. Cheap clothes. The apartment behind her was tiny, sparse. Can I help you? She asked, wary. Mrs. Patterson, my name is Sarah. I'm looking into Richard Monroe's business dealings. I have reason to believe he defrauded your husband. Her face changed, hardened. Who are you really? I'm his daughter. The words hung in the air between us. I watched her expression cycle through shock, anger, confusion. His daughter, she repeated slowly. You've got some nerve coming here. I know. I'm sorry. But I found evidence. Evidence? I had evidence. I went to lawyers, the police, anyone who would listen. You know what they told me? That Richard Monroe is a respected businessman. That my husband was depressed, made bad investments, and was looking for someone to blame. Her voice broke. They made David sound like he was crazy, like he'd imagined the whole thing. And then she couldn't finish. I'm so sorry, I whispered. I didn't know. I just found out what he's been doing. But I have proof now. Real proof. Financial records, emails, everything. Linda stared at me for a long moment. Why are you doing this? He's your father. Because it's right. Because David Patterson deserved better. Because all of you deserved better. She let me in. For the next 2 hours, Linda told me everything. How David had met my father at a charity event. How Dad had pitched him this incredible investment opportunity. A commercial development that was guaranteed to triple his money. How David had been so excited, so hopeful about securing his family's future. He showed me the prospectus, Linda said, tears streaming down her face. Official documents, blueprints, financial projections. It all looked so legitimate. And Richard Monroe was this respected businessman everyone loved. Why wouldn't we trust him? She showed me the emails David had sent, increasingly desperate as the excuses piled up. Delays, permits, market conditions. Always another reason why the project wasn't moving forward, why David couldn't get his money back. He stopped sleeping, Linda continued. Lost 30 pounds. Our daughter Emily needed surgery for her scoliosis, and we couldn't afford it. We lost our house. I had to move in with my sister and David. He couldn't handle the shame. Couldn't look at Emily and tell her why we couldn't fix her back. How is Emily now? I asked quietly. She's 14. Her spine is getting worse. I work 2 jobs, but I still can't afford the surgery. And she knows her father killed himself because we lost everything. How do you think that feels? I thought about my own childhood. Private schools, summer camps, college with no student loans. Every advantage money could buy. All of it stolen from families like the Pattersons. I'm going to make this right, I told her. I promise you. You can't bring David back. No, but I can make sure everyone knows the truth. I can make sure your husband's name is cleared. And I can help you get Emily that surgery. Linda looked at me like I was insane. How? My father has offshore accounts with millions of stolen dollars. When this is all over, that money will be recovered. And it's going to go back to the people he stole it from. You really think you can take down Richard Monroe? I have to try. She studied my face, then nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Everything. Emails, documents, your testimony. I'm building a case, Mrs. Patterson. And when I'm done, there won't be any doubt about what he did. Over the next 3 weeks, I tracked down 6 more of Dad's victims. Maria Chun, who lost her restaurant and her son. She broke down when I showed up at her door, thinking I was there to gloat. When I explained, she didn't believe me at first. Thought it was another one of my father's sick games. Robert and Susan Marshall, elderly couple who invested their entire retirement fund. They were living with their daughter now, couldn't afford their medications. Robert had had a heart attack from the stress. James Wheeler, young entrepreneur who lost his startup and his marriage. He was living in his car when I found him. Each story was worse than the last. Each victim more broken. And each one had the same tale. My father had charmed them, gained their trust, taken everything, and disappeared while they drowned in debt and despair. I documented everything. Marcus helped me organize it all into a database. Names, dates, amounts, evidence. We created a digital trail so comprehensive that no lawyer could dismiss it. No judge could ignore it. But the hardest part was still coming. I needed to meet Jennifer Morrison and Ryan, my father's other family. I found their address in Millbrook easily enough. It was in the decrypted files. A nice house in a quiet neighborhood. Middle class, comfortable. Nothing extravagant. Dad was smart about that too, I realized. Couldn't have his second family living in obvious luxury that might raise questions. I sat in my car across the street for 3 days watching, learning their routine. Jennifer left for work at 7:30 a.m. She was a nurse at the local hospital. Ryan caught the school bus at 7:45. They came home together around 4 p.m. My father's car showed up Friday evening, stayed all weekend, left Sunday night. On Monday, after Jennifer left for work and Ryan left for school, I knocked on the door. No answer, of course. But I left a note under the doormat. Jennifer, I'm Richard's daughter Sarah. I know everything. We need to talk. Please call me. And I left my number. She called that evening. Her voice was shaking. How did you find us? The same way I found out about the embezzlement, the victims, all of it. My father kept records he shouldn't have. Silence on the other end. I'm not here to judge you, I continued. I need to know the truth. All of it. Were you part of this? Or are you another one of his victims? I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. Jennifer, I have 17 years of emails between you two. I know he's been promising to leave my mother since Ryan was born. I know about the fights when those promises never materialized. I know he's been lying to you the same way he's been lying to everyone else. I heard her crying softly. I loved him, she whispered. I still do. He said your mother didn't understand him. That their marriage was over in everything but name. That he just needed time to do it right, to not hurt you. He's never leaving my mother, Jennifer. You know that, right? It's been 17 years. I know. Her voice was barely audible. But Ryan needs his father. And Richard is a good father to him. Whatever else he's done, he loves our son. He's destroyed families, Jennifer. People have died because of what he's done. A man named David Patterson killed himself because my father stole his life savings. No, she said firmly. Richard wouldn't, he's not. I have proof. Bank records, emails, everything. And I need to know if you know where else he's hiding money. If there are other accounts, other properties. I need to know everything if I'm going to stop him. Stop him from what? From hurting anyone else. From continuing to live this lie. From pretending he's a good man when he's a monster. Another long silence. When? She finally asked. When what? When are you going to expose him? I hadn't expected her to ask that. Soon. Within a few months. I need to make sure everything is airtight first. Ryan will be devastated. I know. I'm sorry. But he deserves to know the truth about his father. You both do. And your mother? Does she know? That was the question I'd been avoiding. Not yet. But I'm going to have to tell her soon. I can't keep this from her much longer. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. I have some documents, she said finally. Richard left some papers here once. Account numbers, passwords. I never understood what they were for. I'll send them to you. Why would you help me? Because you're right. It's been 17 years of promises and lies. And I'm tired. Ryan is tired. Maybe it's time for all of this to end. She sent me the documents that night. More offshore accounts. More hidden money. More lies upon lies upon lies. The picture was complete now. I knew everything my father had done. Every crime, every victim, every secret. Now came the hardest part. I had to tell my mother. I didn't sleep for 3 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. David Patterson's widow, Linda, crying in that tiny apartment. Emily Patterson at 14 with a curved spine that would never be fixed. Maria Chun, who'd lost everything including her son. James Wheeler living in his car. And then I'd see my father's face at that birthday party, accepting his humanitarian award, and I'd want to scream. The weight of what I knew was crushing me. I'd lost 15 pounds. Stopped going to work. Told them I had the flu. Stopped answering calls from friends. My apartment became my cave, filled with documents and evidence and coffee cups I forgot to wash. Marcus came by every few days to check on me, bringing food I didn't eat. You need to sleep, he'd say. You need to talk to someone. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're barely functioning. He was right, but I couldn't stop. Every moment I wasn't working on the case felt like a betrayal to Dad's victims. Like I was complicit in his crimes by not moving fast enough. But the worst part? I still had to see him. Had to sit across from him at family dinners and pretend I didn't know. Pretend I was still his adoring daughter. Sunday dinners were mandatory in the Monroe family. Every week, no exceptions. Mom would cook, Dad would pour wine, and we'd sit around their dining table like we were in some Norman Rockwell painting of the perfect American family. The Sunday after I'd talked to Jennifer Morrison, I almost couldn't do it. Sat in my car outside their house for 30 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to breathe. I could see them through the window. Dad setting the table. Mom in the kitchen. Everything so normal. So perfectly normal. I forced myself inside. There she is. Dad's face lit up when I walked in. He pulled me into a hug, and it took everything I had not to pull away. You feeling better? Your mom said you've been sick. Much better. I lied. Just a bad flu. You still look thin. Margaret, we need to fatten up our girl. Mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. When she saw me, her smile faltered for just a second. She knew. Maybe not the details, but mothers always know when something's wrong with their children. Sarah, honey, you do look pale. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine, Mom. Really. We sat down to dinner. Pot roast, Dad's favorite. I pushed food around my plate, forcing myself to take bites, to smile, to nod at the right moments. Dad talked about work. A new development project he was consulting on. I wondered how many people he was scamming this time. How many families would be destroyed by whatever lies he was currently spinning. The Hendersons asked about you, Mom said. Their daughter Rebecca is getting married next month. They'd love for you to come. That's nice, I said automatically. Sarah. Dad's voice had an edge to it. I looked up. He was studying me, concern and something else in his eyes. Suspicion? What's really going on? You've been distant lately. My heart stopped. What do you mean? You're not yourself. Short texts. Missing our lunch last week. Now you're barely talking. He reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away before I could stop myself. His eyes narrowed. Sarah? Sorry, Think fast. I'm seeing someone. It's new. I guess I'm just distracted. The lie worked. Mom's face brightened immediately. Oh, honey. That's wonderful. Tell us about him. I spun a story about a fictional boyfriend. Marketing executive. Met at a conference. Sweet, funny. Takes me to nice restaurants. Every word felt like swallowing glass, but it diverted their attention. Dad relaxed, smiled, made jokes about meeting this guy and intimidating him with the father routine. I laughed at the right moments, played my part. But when I left that night, I sat in my car and cried so hard I couldn't see. How much longer could I do this? How many more dinners? More lies? More moments of pretending everything was fine while I slowly fell apart. The nightmares started that week. I dream I was at Dad's birthday party again. But this time when the mayor presented the award, it turned into handcuffs. Or I dream about David Patterson's suicide. Except in the dream, I was there watching, unable to stop it. The worst nightmare was the one where I confronted Dad with everything, and he just laughed. Told me no one would believe me, that I was his daughter and I'd go down with him, that I'd lose everything too. I'd wake up gasping, sheets soaked with sweat, convinced it was real. Marcus found me on my bathroom floor one morning, having a panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just kept seeing my father's face and hearing his voice. I'm proud of you, Sarah. You've got integrity. That's it, Marcus said firmly. You're seeing a therapist. I can't. What if they ask questions? What if? Then you lie about the details. But you need help, Sarah. This is destroying you. He was right. I found a therapist who took cash and didn't ask too many questions. Dr. Patricia Wells, mid-50s, kind eyes. I told her I'd discovered something terrible about someone I loved and didn't know what to do with the information. Are you in danger? She asked. No. But other people might be if I don't act. What's stopping you from acting? Fear. Grief. The fact that once I do this, there's no going back. I'll lose my family. My father will hate me. My mother might never forgive me. Everything I thought I knew about my life is a lie, and I'm about to blow it all up. Dr. Wells was quiet for a moment. It sounds like you're grieving. He's not dead. No. But the father you thought you had is. You're grieving that loss. And that's valid. I started crying. Couldn't stop. 28 years of loving a man who didn't exist. 28 years of memories that were all tainted now. Every birthday, every holiday, every moment of pride. All of it built on lies and blood money. I keep thinking about this one Christmas, I told Dr. Wells. I was 7. Dad got me this expensive dollhouse, 3 stories tall, perfect little furniture. I thought it was the most magical thing I'd ever seen. I played with it for years. What about it? I looked up how much those dollhouses cost. $3,000. And now I know that dollhouse was probably bought with money stolen from someone who couldn't afford Christmas presents for their own kids. Everything he ever gave me is tainted. Every gift, every vacation, every memory. That's not your fault, Sarah. Isn't it? I benefited from his crimes. I lived in that house, ate that food, went to that private school. I'm complicit. You were a child. You didn't know. But I know now. And if I don't do something about it, if I don't stop him, then I am complicit. Then I'm choosing to protect him instead of his victims. Dr. Wells nodded slowly. It sounds like you've already made your decision. I have. I'm going to expose him. Destroy his reputation. Make sure everyone knows what he did. But I'm terrified. Of what? Of what comes after. Of who I'll be when this is over. Of whether I'm doing this for justice or just revenge. Of whether I'm any better than he is. Do you think revenge and justice are mutually exclusive? I thought about that. No. I think sometimes they're the same thing. But I also think my motives aren't pure. I want him to suffer. I want him to feel a fraction of the pain he's caused. Does that make me a bad person? It makes you human. But here's the question you need to ask yourself. If there were a way to get justice for his victims without destroying your father, would you take it? I sat with that question for a long time. Finally, I shook my head. No, because he'll just keep doing it. He's been getting away with this for decades. The only way to stop him is to make sure he can never con anyone again. And that means complete exposure. Total destruction of everything he's built. Then you have your answer. But knowing what I had to do and actually doing it were two different things. I still had to finalize my case. Still had to talk to my mother. And I still had to maintain the facade for a few more weeks while everything fell into place. The worst moment came 2 weeks later at another family dinner. Dad was in rare form, telling stories, making everyone laugh. He talked about a family he'd helped recently, gave them a loan to save their small business. The wife actually cried, he said, shaking his head with false modesty. Can you imagine? Just for doing the right thing. I knew that family, the Johnsons. I'd found them in his files. He hadn't given them a loan. He'd invested in their business, slowly taken control, and was in the process of forcing them out. In 6 months, they'd own nothing, and my father would own everything. That's wonderful, Dad. I heard myself say. You always know how to help people. It's important to give back, he said. Looking at me with such sincerity, I almost believed him myself. That's what I've always tried to teach you, Sarah. Success means nothing if you're not lifting others up. I excused myself to the bathroom and vomited. When I came back, Mom was watching me with worried eyes. After dinner, she cornered me in the kitchen while Dad was in his office. Sarah, what is going on with you? Nothing, Mom. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. I'm your mother. I know when something's wrong. She grabbed my hands. They were shaking. Talk to me, baby. Please. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She'd aged in the last few weeks. More gray in her hair. Deeper lines around her eyes. Did she know? Did she suspect? Mom, if you found out something terrible about someone you loved, something that changed everything you thought you knew about them, what would you do? Her face went pale. What did you find out? I can't, not yet. But soon. I promise I'll tell you everything soon. Is it about your father? The question hung in the air between us. I couldn't lie to her face, but I couldn't tell her the truth yet either. Mom, I knew, she whispered. I knew something was wrong. He's been different lately, paranoid, checking his phone constantly, making sure doors are locked. I thought maybe. She stopped, tears in her eyes. What did he do, Sarah? I'll tell you everything. Promise. But not yet. I need a little more time. She studied my face, then nodded slowly. Okay. But Sarah, whatever it is, we'll get through it together. You and me. Okay? I hugged her tight, wondering if she'd still feel that way when she knew the truth. That night, I updated my case files, added the Johnsons to the list of victims, made notes about Dad's increasing paranoia. He knew something was wrong, could feel it, but couldn't figure out what. I was running out of time. The emotional spiral was getting worse. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Other days I worked 18 hours straight, obsessively organizing evidence, rereading victim statements, making sure everything was perfect. Marcus staged an intervention. You have enough, he said, going through my files. Sarah, you have more than enough to bury him. You need to act before you destroy yourself. It has to be perfect. It is perfect. You have financial records, victim testimonies, emails, photos, you have everything. The only thing you're accomplishing now is torturing yourself. He was right. I had enough evidence to take down a dozen Richard Monroes. It was time. Time to tell my mother everything. Time to finalize my plan for the exposure. Time to stop being the loving daughter and become the agent of my father's destruction. But first, I needed one more family dinner. One last performance. One final moment of being Sarah Monroe, beloved daughter, before I became Sarah Monroe, the woman who destroyed her father's life. I called Mom. Sunday dinner. Can we make it just us three? I need to talk to you both about something. Of course, honey. Is everything okay? It will be, I said. After Sunday, everything will finally be okay. Hashtag the silent betrayal part 6. The witnesses. Before Sunday dinner, before I confronted my parents, I needed one more thing. I needed the victims to speak. Not just to me, but on camera. Permanent, undeniable testimony that would make it impossible for anyone to dismiss or ignore what my father had done. Marcus helped me rent a small studio space. Nothing fancy, just a room with good lighting and a clean background. We set up his camera equipment on a Tuesday morning, and I made the calls. This is Sarah Monroe. I know this is incredibly difficult, but I'm asking you to tell your story on camera. When I expose my father, I want the world to hear directly from the people he hurt. I want them to see your faces, hear your voices. I want to make it impossible for anyone to look away. Some people said no immediately, hung up, blocked my number. I didn't blame them. Why would they trust the daughter of the man who destroyed their lives? But some people said yes. Linda Patterson was the first to arrive. She dressed up for the occasion. A simple black dress, her hair done, makeup carefully applied. She wanted to look dignified, she told me. Wanted David to be proud of how she represented him. We sat her in the chair across from the camera. Marcus adjusted the lighting. I pulled up a stool beside the camera so she'd be looking at me, not just at a lens. Whenever you're ready, I said softly. Just tell your story. Tell the truth. She took a deep breath. My name is Linda Patterson. My husband David was murdered by Richard Monroe. Her voice was steady, clear, strong. Not with a gun or a knife. With lies. With manipulation. With theft disguised as investment opportunities. She looked directly at the camera. David was a good man. A wonderful father. A hard worker. He'd saved for 20 years to have enough money to invest, to build something for our future. And Richard Monroe took it all. She told the whole story. How they met. The promises. The documents that seemed so legitimate. The months of excuses. The growing desperation. David's deteriorating mental health. He stopped eating. Couldn't sleep. He'd wake up at 3 a.m. in a panic, checking his email, hoping for some response from Richard Monroe. Any response. Even just an acknowledgement that we existed. That our lives mattered. Her voice cracked. Our daughter Emily needed surgery. Scoliosis. We couldn't afford it. We lost our house. I had to beg my sister to take us in. And David, he couldn't live with what he thought was his failure. He thought he'd destroyed his family by being stupid, by trusting the wrong person. He died believing he was a failure. Tears streamed down her face, but she didn't stop. But he wasn't the failure. Richard Monroe was. David was a victim. And Richard Monroe made sure my husband died believing it was his own fault. That's the cruelest thing of all. He stole David's money, his future, and then he stole David's dignity. Made him feel worthless. Made him feel like ending his life was the only option. She looked directly at the camera. My daughter is 14 years old. Her spine is curved 43 degrees. She needs surgery or she'll be in pain for the rest of her life. And we can't afford it because Richard Monroe stole everything we had. Everything. She paused, wiping her eyes. But here's what I want people to know. David wasn't stupid. He wasn't naive. He was targeted by a professional con artist who had spent decades perfecting his act. Richard Monroe is a predator. He identifies good people who trust easily, who want to believe the best in others, and he destroys them. Not for survival. Not because he needs the money, but because he can. Because he enjoys it. Because other people's suffering means nothing to him. When David died, I wanted to die too, but I couldn't leave Emily alone. So I kept going, working 2 jobs, barely surviving, and I watched Richard Monroe accept awards. Saw him on the news cutting ribbons at hospitals, handing out scholarships, playing the role of the generous philanthropist. Her voice turned hard. Every dollar he's ever donated was stolen. Every good deed was a lie. Every award was undeserved. And I'm done staying silent. I'm done letting him get away with it. David's death will not be meaningless. When she finished, the room was silent. Marcus had tears running down his face. I couldn't speak. Linda stood up, adjusted her dress. When are you going to release this? Soon. A few weeks at most. She nodded. Good. Make him pay, Sarah. For David. For Emily. For all of us. Maria Chun came next. She was in her 50s, small, tired-looking. She'd owned a restaurant, Chen's Garden, that had been in her family for 3 generations, until my father destroyed it. I grew up in that restaurant, she said to the camera. My grandmother started it in 1972. It was our legacy, our pride, our livelihood. And then I met Richard Monroe at a business networking event. He said he could help me expand, open a second location. He seemed so genuine, so interested in preserving my family's legacy. She explained how Dad had convinced her to take out loans, to invest in expansion, to trust his financial guidance. How he'd slowly taken control of her business under the guise of helping. Within 18 months, I'd lost everything. The restaurant, my home, my savings. But worse than that, I lost my son. Her voice broke. My ex-husband sued for full custody. Said I was unstable, financially irresponsible. The courts agreed. I see my son, my Tommy, twice a month now, supervised visits. Because Richard Monroe took everything from me, and I couldn't fight back. She looked into the camera with hollow eyes. My son was 9 years old when I lost him. He's 13 now. He barely knows me anymore. And Richard Monroe? He doesn't even remember my name. I'm just another business deal that went wrong. Another casualty he left behind. Robert and Susan Marshall came together, holding hands. They were in their 70s, married for 48 years. They'd invested their entire retirement fund with my father. $800,000 saved over decades of careful planning. We wanted to leave something for our grandchildren, Robert said, his voice shaking. Richard promised us 12% returns. Safe, conservative investments. He had all these credentials, all these references. We thought we were being smart. Susan picked up the story. Within 2 years, we'd lost everything. Richard said the market had turned, that it was bad luck, that he'd lost money too. He seemed so apologetic, so genuine. We actually felt bad for him. We didn't know he was lying, Robert continued. Didn't know he'd just moved our money into his own accounts. We found out later, but by then it was too late. No evidence we could prove. Just our word against Richard Monroe's. We had to sell our house, Susan said quietly. Move in with our daughter. I have diabetes. Robert has a heart condition. We can't afford our medications half the time. We split pills, skip doses, do whatever we have to do to survive. Robert looked at the camera, and I saw something in his eyes I'd seen before. Absolute defeat. I worked for 45 years. 45 years. Never missed a day. Saved every penny I could. And Richard Monroe took it all in less than 2 years. We're supposed to be enjoying our golden years. Instead, we're a burden to our children, living in their basement, trying not to cost them too much money. Our granddaughter's getting married next year, Susan added. We can't afford to go. Can't afford the flight, the hotel, a wedding gift. We'll miss our own granddaughter's wedding because Richard Monroe stole our future. James Wheeler came last. He was 32, my age. Should have been in his prime. Instead, he looked like he'd aged 20 years. Hollow cheeks, tired eyes, cheap clothes that didn't fit right. I was 26 when I met Richard Monroe, he said. I just launched a tech startup. Mobile app for local businesses. It was taking off. We had users, revenue, venture capitalists interested. I was on top of the world. He laughed bitterly. Richard approached me at a tech conference. Said he wanted to invest, help me scale. He seemed perfect. Successful businessman, connections, experience. I thought I'd won the lottery. The story was familiar by now. False promises, manipulation, slow takeover, final betrayal. He took control of my company, ran it into the ground, and walked away with everything. My intellectual property, my client list, my code. All of it. I tried to fight back legally, but he had better lawyers. I lost everything. James looked down at his hands. My fiancée left me. Said she couldn't be with someone so stupid, so naive. My parents disowned me. They'd invested in my company too. Lost their savings. I lived in my car for 8 months. Ate at soup kitchens. Considered suicide more times than I can count. He looked up at the camera. I'm living in a friend's garage now. Working 3 part-time jobs just to survive. No prospects. No future. No hope. And Richard Monroe? He's probably playing golf right now, laughing with his friends, planning his next victim. But here's what I want people to understand, James continued, his voice gaining strength. Richard Monroe doesn't just steal money. He steals dreams, hope, dignity. He doesn't just destroy bank accounts, he destroys lives, families, futures. And he does it with a smile, with charm, with the appearance of legitimacy that makes you doubt yourself even when you know you've been victimized. He leaned forward. I hope Sarah succeeds. I hope she tears down everything he's built. Because men like Richard Monroe don't deserve to walk free. They deserve to lose everything they stole and more. They deserve to feel what we've felt. The betrayal, the shame, the absolute devastation of losing everything. When the last interview finished, Marcus and I sat in the empty studio, surrounded by hours of footage. This is powerful, Marcus said quietly. Sarah, this is going to change everything. I watched the footage back, saw their faces, heard their pain. Each story more devastating than the last. These weren't statistics, weren't numbers in a spreadsheet. These were real people whose lives my father had destroyed without a second thought. While he'd been coming home to family dinners, accepting awards, playing the devoted father, these people had been suffering, dying, losing everything. He has to pay, I whispered. For all of them. He will, Marcus said. You're going to make sure of it. I had my evidence. I had my witnesses. I had everything I needed. Now it was time for Sunday dinner. Time to tell my mother the truth. Time to watch my family fall apart. And time to start planning the final public exposure that would destroy Richard Monroe forever. I copied the interview footage onto multiple drives, backed it up to the cloud, made sure it was safe. These testimonies were the heart of my case. The human cost of my father's crimes. Saturday night I barely slept. Kept running through what I'd say to my mother. How I'd tell her. How she'd react. Would she believe me? Would she defend him? Would she hate me for destroying the life she'd built? I didn't know. But I was about to find out. Sunday arrived too fast and not fast enough. I dressed carefully. Jeans and a sweater, comfortable, casual. This wasn't going to be a formal dinner. This was going to be a reckoning. I drove to my parents' house at 5 p.m., the external hard drive containing all my evidence in my bag. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the steering wheel. This was it. No more pretending. No more lies. No more being the loving daughter who didn't know. After tonight, everything would change. I pulled into their driveway, turned off the car, and sat there for a moment, gathering my courage. Then I grabbed my bag, walked to the front door, and knocked. My mother answered, smiled, pulled me into a hug. "Hi, sweetheart. Dinner's almost ready. Your father's in his office, finishing up some work. Actually, Mom, I need to talk to both of you before dinner. It's important." She must have heard something in my voice because her smile faded. "Sarah? What's wrong? Just get Dad. Please, we all need to sit down." She studied my face, then nodded slowly and called upstairs. "Richard, Sarah needs to talk to us." I heard his footsteps on the stairs, heard his cheerful voice. "Sarah." Perfect timing. I was just finishing up. He stopped when he saw my face, saw the hard drive in my hands. "What's going on?" His tone had changed. Alert now. Wary. "Living room," I said. "Both of you. Now." I walked in and sat down, placed the hard drive on the coffee table. My parents exchanged glances and sat across from me on the couch. "Sarah, you're scaring me," Mom said. "What is this about?" I looked at my father. Really looked at him. This man I'd loved my entire life. This monster wearing my father's face. "It's about the truth," I said. "And it's time you both knew it." Hashtag the silent betrayal part 7. The psychological game. The silence in that living room was suffocating. My father sat perfectly still on the couch, his eyes locked on the hard drive sitting on the coffee table. I watched his face, watched the micro-expressions I'd learned to read over a lifetime. The slight tightening around his eyes, the almost imperceptible clench of his jaw. He knew. Whatever he'd been worried about for weeks, whatever had made him paranoid and suspicious, it was happening right now. "Sarah," Mom said, reaching for my hand. "You're really scaring us. What's going on?" I pulled my hand away, couldn't let her touch me. Not yet. Not until she knew everything. "I found something a few weeks ago," I began, my voice steadier than I expected. "Hidden in Dad's office. A thumb drive with encrypted files." Dad's face went completely blank. That's how I knew I was right about everything. That practiced emptiness he wore when he was lying to clients, to investors, to victims. I'd seen it before but never recognized it for what it was. "Sarah, I don't know what you think you found," he started. "Don't," I cut him off. "Don't lie to me anymore. I've spent the last month decrypting every file, tracking down every victim, documenting every crime. I know everything, Dad. Everything." Mom looked between us, confusion turning to fear. "What is she talking about, Richard?" "I have no idea. Sarah, if you've been going through my private files, that's a serious invasion of—" "You're embezzling money," I said flatly. "Have been for at least 15 years, probably longer. You've stolen millions of dollars from investors, business partners, clients who trusted you. You funnel their money through shell companies and offshore accounts while they lose everything." "That's absurd," Dad said, but his voice had changed. Colder, harder. The charming businessman was gone. "Those are legitimate investments that didn't pan out. Markets fluctuate. Risks are inherent in. David Patterson killed himself because of you." The room went silent. Mom's face had gone white. "David Patterson? The man from the news? Richard, you said you barely knew him." "I didn't. He was an acquaintance who made poor investment decisions and blamed me when—" "You stole $2 million from him," I continued relentlessly. "His life savings, his daughter's medical fund, everything. And when he begged you for even a fraction of it back, you stopped responding to his emails. He killed himself 18 months ago, and you went to a charity gala the next week and accepted an award." "Sarah, stop this right now." Dad stood up, and for the first time in my life I saw him as threatening. "I don't know what lies someone has told you, but—" "Lies? I have your financial records, Dad. Your emails, Your communications with Jennifer Morrison and Ryan. Your other family you've been hiding for 17 years. Mom made a sound like she'd been punched. Dad's mask slipped completely. The rage underneath was terrifying. You had no right. Jennifer Morrison? Mom's voice was barely a whisper. Richard. Who is Jennifer Morrison? Nobody. Sarah's confused. She. His girlfriend? I said, looking at my mother. Since before I was born. They have a son together. Ryan. He's 15. Dad bought them a house in Millbrook. Visits every other weekend. Tells you he's at conferences. Mom stood up, stumbling slightly. This isn't happening. This can't be. Margaret, let me explain. Dad reached for her. Don't touch me. She jerked away from him. Is it true? Do you have another family? I watched my father calculate his options. Saw him decide that some truth was necessary now. That's how con artists work. They admit to the lesser crime to hide the bigger one. Yes, he said quietly. But it's complicated. It happened years ago. I tried to end it, but 17 years, I said. You've been lying to Mom for 17 years. Spending her money on your other family. Using stolen funds to support both households. Sarah, enough. Dad's voice was sharp now. Dangerous. You don't understand the complexity of. I understand you've destroyed families. Maria Chun lost her restaurant and her son. Robert and Susan Marshall lost their retirement and are living in their daughter's basement. James Wheeler lived in his car for 8 months. I have their testimonies on video, Dad. Every single one of them. The color drained from his face. What did you do? I found your victims. Talked to them. Documented their stories. I have everything. Mom sank back onto the couch. Shaking. Richard, tell me she's lying. Please tell me this isn't true. For a moment I thought he might break. Might actually tell the truth. But then I saw it, the shift back to charm offensive. The manipulation I'd seen him use 1,000 times. He sat down next to Mom. Took her hands even though she tried to pull away. Margaret, listen to me. Sarah has gotten confused, taken things out of context. Yes, I made mistakes. The thing with Jennifer. It was wrong. And I'm sorry. But the rest? These business accusations? People get angry when investments don't work out. They look for someone to blame. I have your bank records, I said coldly. The offshore accounts. The shell companies. Jennifer sent me documentation you left at her house. I have everything and you know it. His eyes met mine and I saw real fear there for the first time. What do you want? He asked quietly. What do I want? I laughed, and it sounded hysterical even to my own ears. I want to know who you really are. I want to know if you ever loved me, or if I was just part of your cover. Part of the perfect family image that let you steal with impunity. Of course I love you. You're my daughter. Am I? Because the father I thought I knew would never do these things. The father I worshipped my entire life doesn't exist. So who are you really? We stared at each other across the coffee table. The man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stayed up all night helping with school projects, who'd cried at my college graduation. Where was he? Had he ever been real? Sarah, he said carefully. Let's talk about this rationally. Whatever you think you've found. Stop. Mom interrupted. Her voice was hollow. Dead. Just stop lying, Richard. For once in your life. Just stop. She turned to me. Is it true? All of it. I nodded. I'm sorry, Mom. But yes. All of it and more. She started crying. Silent tears streaming down her face. I wanted to comfort her. But I couldn't move. Couldn't look away from my father. What are you planning to do with this information? Dad asked. His voice was controlled now. Businesslike. We'd moved past denial into negotiation. I'm going to expose you. Everything. Public exposure. The media. Police. Everyone will know what you've done. Sarah, think about what you're saying. Think about your mother. About yourself. If you do this, you'll destroy your own family. The Monroe name will be ruined. Your future. Your career. I don't care. You should care. His voice rose. Do you know what happens to families like ours when something like this comes out? Your mother will lose everything. The house, the lifestyle, all of it. Assets will be frozen. You'll both be investigated. People will assume you knew, that you benefited. We did benefit, I said. We lived off stolen money our entire lives. Maybe we deserve to lose everything. Don't be naive. This will destroy your mother. Is that what you want? I looked at Mom, saw her broken expression, and felt my resolve waver. What was I doing? Was I helping or just hurting the one person in this who was also a victim? Dad saw my hesitation and pressed his advantage. Sarah, sweetheart, I know you're angry. You have every right to be. But destroying me won't help anyone. The people he caught himself. The people who lost money, they won't get it back. The courts will tie up my assets for years. Meanwhile, your mother will suffer. You'll suffer. Is that justice? What's your alternative? I asked coldly. Let me make things right. Quietly. I have offshore accounts. I can liquidate them, pay back the people I owe. Establish trusts for the families. Give them everything they lost and more. And you get to walk away free? Keep your reputation? Keep living the lie? I'll retire. Step down from the company. Fade into the background. But your mother doesn't lose her home. You don't lose your future. And the victims get their money back. More than they would if this goes public and everything gets tied up in litigation for decades. I wanted to say no immediately. Wanted to tell him that wasn't justice. But he was right about one thing: public exposure would hurt Mom. Would hurt me. And the victims might never see a penny if his assets were frozen in endless legal battles. I need to think, I said. Sarah. Dad leaned forward. I know I've done terrible things. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But I'm still your father. Doesn't that count for something? And there it was. The manipulation I should have seen coming. The appeal to emotion. The reminder of every birthday, every Christmas, every moment of my childhood. No, I said softly. It doesn't. Because that father never existed. You made him up. And I'm not stupid enough to fall for your lies anymore. I grabbed the hard drive and stood up. You have 1 week. I said. Exactly 1 week. If you want to liquidate your accounts and pay back every victim, you can try. But I'm not promising anything. I'm still going to the police. I'm still going to expose what you've done. The only question is whether I do it now or give you time to at least try to make some of it right. Sarah, please. 1 week, Dad. And if you try to run, if you try to hide more money, if you do anything other than exactly what you promised, I release everything immediately. The victims' testimonies, the financial records, everything. I looked at my mother. Mom, I'm sorry. I know this is horrible, but you need to decide if you're staying with him or not. Because when this comes out, and it will come out, you need to be on the right side. Sarah, wait. Mom reached for me, but I was already walking out. Couldn't stay there another second. Couldn't breathe in that house full of lies. I got in my car and drove. Didn't know where I was going, just drove. My phone started ringing immediately. Dad, then Mom, then Dad again. I turned it off. Had I just made a huge mistake? Giving him a week was giving him time to hide money, destroy evidence, maybe even run. What was I thinking? But the look on Mom's face. The absolute devastation. I couldn't do it. Couldn't press the button that would destroy her life without at least trying to protect her somehow. I ended up at Marcus's apartment. He took one look at my face and pulled me inside. What happened? I told him everything. The confrontation. Dad's offer. My stupid decision to give him a week. Marcus was quiet for a long time. He's going to run. I know. Or hide evidence. Move money around. Use that week to cover his tracks even more. I know. So why did you give it to him? I started crying. Because my mom was sitting there looking like her world had just ended, and my father was using her as a shield, and I couldn't be the person who destroyed her without at least trying to minimize the damage. Marcus hugged me while I sobbed. You did the right thing. Maybe. I don't know. This is impossible, Sarah. There's no good choice here. He was right. Every option led to pain. Every path led to destruction. But I'd set things in motion now. 1 week. 7 days. And then everything would explode whether I was ready or not. We need to watch him, Marcus said. Track his movements. Make sure he doesn't run. How? I have a friend who does private investigation. We can have someone follow him, monitor his accounts, make sure we know if he tries anything. Felt wrong spying on my own father. But everything felt wrong now. Okay. I agreed. Do it. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept replaying the confrontation. The look on Dad's face when he realized I knew everything. The way he'd immediately started calculating, manipulating, using Mom as a shield. Part of me had hoped he'd break down. Confess. Show some genuine remorse. That would have made it easier, somehow. Would have meant something of the father I'd loved was still in there. But he'd just gone straight into damage control. Proving he was exactly what I'd discovered. A con artist to his core. Even his own daughter was just another mark to be managed. The psychological game had begun. And I had 7 days to figure out if I just made the biggest mistake of my life. #The Silent Betrayal Part 8. The Mother's Dilemma. Mom showed up at my apartment at 6 a.m. the next morning. I heard the knocking through my restless sleep, stumbled to the door, and found her standing there still in yesterday's clothes. She looked like she hadn't slept at all. Her eyes were red and swollen. Mascara smeared down her cheeks. Hair disheveled. "Mom, I need to know everything," she said, pushing past me into my apartment. "Not the highlights. Everything. Every detail. Every lie. I need to know exactly who I've been married to for 35 years. I made coffee while she sat at my kitchen table, shaking. Pepper, my cat, jumped into her lap, and she absently stroked his fur like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "Where's Dad?" I asked. "I don't know. I locked myself in the guest room last night. When I came out this morning, he was gone. Left a note saying he needed time to think." Her voice was hollow. 35 years, Sarah. We've been married for 35 years, and I don't know where my husband is. I sat down across from her and opened my laptop. "Are you sure you want to see this?" "I need to. Please." So I showed her everything. Started with the financial records, the offshore accounts, the shell companies, the systematic theft. Watched her face crumble as she saw the numbers. $12 million. 15. 20. The amount kept growing as I showed her file after file. "This can't be right," she whispered. "We don't live like this. We're comfortable, but not like this. Because most of it's hidden. Sitting in offshore accounts he can't spend without raising suspicions." Then I showed her the victims' video testimonies. Made her watch Linda Patterson talk about David's suicide. Made her see Maria Chen's tears when she described losing her son. Made her hear Robert and Susan Marshall explain how they split pills because they can't afford their medications. Mom covered her mouth, sobbing silently as each story played. "I didn't know," she kept saying. "I swear to God, Sarah, I didn't know." "I know, Mom. Do you?" She looked at me with desperate eyes. "Because I'm wondering how I could have been so blind. How I could have lived with this man for decades and never suspected. What does that make me?" "It makes you a victim too. He's a professional liar, Mom. This is what he does." But then I showed her the worst part. The emails with Jennifer Morrison. 17 years of correspondence. The promises to leave Mom. The fights. The photos of Ryan growing up. Birthday parties and holidays and school plays. A whole second family Dad had built in secret. Mom got up and went to my bathroom. I heard her vomiting. When she came back, she looked like a ghost. 17 years, she said. I gave him 35 years of my life, and he was with her for 17 of them. More than half our marriage. "I'm so sorry, Mom. Did you meet her?" "Jennifer?" "No. We just talked on the phone. She sent me documents." "Is she—" Mom's voice cracked. "Is she prettier than me? Younger?" "Mom, don't do that to yourself. I need to know. What does she have that I don't? Why wasn't I enough? This isn't about you. This is about Dad being a narcissist who needs constant validation. He probably told Jennifer the same lies he told you. That you didn't understand him. That he was going to leave but the timing wasn't right. He played you both. Mom was quiet for a long time, staring at my coffee table. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, harder. I knew something was wrong. What? Not about Jennifer specifically, not about the crimes. But I knew. Deep down, I always knew something was off. She looked at me with haunted eyes. There were signs. Little things. Phone calls he'd take in another room. Business trips that didn't quite add up. Times when his story would change slightly if I asked about details. And his moods. He could be so charming one moment and then ice cold the next. Why didn't you say anything? Because I was scared, she admitted. Scared of what I might find. Scared of losing everything. Scared of being alone. So I told myself I was imagining things. That I was being paranoid or insecure. I convinced myself everything was fine because the alternative was too terrifying. She started crying again. I'm complicit, Sarah. I looked the other way. I accepted the lifestyle, the house, the cars, the vacations, all of it bought with stolen money. I'm just as guilty as he is. No, you're not. You didn't know. I knew something was wrong. I chose not to look deeper. Chose comfort over truth. What does that make me? I didn't have an answer for that. We sat in silence for a while. Then Mom asked the question I'd been dreading. What are you going to do? I'm going to expose him. Publicly. In exactly 6 days, I'm releasing everything, the financial records, the victim testimonies, all of it. He'll be arrested. His reputation will be destroyed. Everything he's built will come crashing down. And me? What happens to me? I don't know, Mom. Honestly, your assets might be frozen. You'll probably be investigated to see if you were involved. The house might be seized. It's going to be bad. She nodded slowly. I deserve that. No, you don't. You're a victim in this too. Am I though? She looked at me. Or did I choose willful ignorance because it was easier than facing the truth? Because I liked my life and didn't want to risk it? Mom, I need you to be honest with me, Sarah. Do you blame me? I thought about that. Did I blame her for not seeing what I'd also missed for 28 years? Did I blame her for the little voice she'd ignored while I'd ignored mine? I don't know, I said honestly. Part of me wants to say no, you're completely innocent. But another part of me wonders how you could live with him for so long and not see it. How you could accept his absences, his secrets, his lies. She flinched but nodded. That's fair. That's more than fair. But Mom, the difference is you didn't commit the crimes. You didn't steal from anyone. You didn't ruin lives. Whatever you did or didn't see, you're still a victim of his manipulation. So what do I do now? You leave him. You file for divorce. You cooperate with the investigation. You separate yourself from him as much as possible. And go where? Do what? I haven't worked in 30 years, Sarah. Everything we have is in his name. I have no money, no career, nowhere to go. You can stay here. With me. She looked around my tiny apartment. You don't have room. We'll make it work. I'm not letting you stay with him, Mom. Not after everything. But maybe if I stay, I can. She stopped herself. Can what? Convince him to do the right thing? He's had decades to do the right thing. He's not going to start now. You gave him a week, she pointed out. You must think there's some chance he'll try to make it right. I gave him a week so you wouldn't be completely blindsided when everything exploded. So you'd have time to prepare. Not because I think he's actually going to liquidate his accounts and pay everyone back. You really think he won't? Mom, in the 24 hours since I confronted him, has he called you? Texted? Apologized? Tried to explain? She shook her head. Exactly. He's not trying to fix things. He's strategizing. Figuring out his next move. Probably talking to lawyers, moving money around, covering his tracks even more. That's who he is. Mom was quiet for a long moment. Then, I need to go back to the house. Why? Because I need to see what he's doing. Need to know if you're right. And because, her voice broke. Because I need to say goodbye to my life. Even if it was built on lies, it was still my life. I'll come with you. No. I need to do this alone. Mom. Sarah, please. I need to face him by myself. Need to look him in the eye and decide who I believe, you or him. I know that sounds insane, but I need to hear it from him directly. He's just going to lie. Probably, but I need to give him the chance to tell me the truth. I need to know if there's any part of the man I married still in there. I understood that. Hadn't I done the same thing? Given him a week because some small part of me hoped he'd prove me wrong? Okay, I said, but call me if anything feels wrong. If you're scared or if he threatens you or anything. Promise me. I promise. She stood to leave, then turned back. Sarah? Do you still love him? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. I love the father I thought I had. But that person doesn't exist. So I don't know if what I'm feeling is love or just grief for someone who never was. Yeah, Mom said softly. That's exactly how I feel too. After she left, I called Marcus's private investigator friend, Tony. He'd been following Dad since yesterday. Where is he? I asked. Law office downtown. Been there since 7 this morning. Meeting with someone named Gerald Hartwick. I knew that name. Gerald Hartwick was one of the best criminal defense attorneys in the state. So he's lawyering up, not paying back victims. Looks that way. Want me to keep following him? Yes, and let me know if he goes anywhere near a bank or tries to leave the state. You got it. I hung up and stared at my phone. Dad wasn't trying to make things right. He was preparing for war. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Is this Sarah Monroe? Yes. Who is this? My name is Gerald Hartwick. I'm representing your father. He'd like to speak with you. Tell my father if he wants to talk to me. He can call me himself. Miss Monroe, I strongly advise you to hear what we have to say. What you're planning to do could have serious legal consequences for you as well. Are you threatening me? I'm informing you that accessing your father's private files without authorization, attempting to extort him. Extort him? I'm not asking for money. I'm exposing his crimes. According to your father, you're threatening to release falsified documents unless he pays you $20 million. My blood ran cold. That's a lie. Is it? Because if you release anything, we'll be filing charges against you for theft, computer fraud, extortion, and defamation. We'll tie you up in court for years. And your mother? She'll lose everything while the case drags on. My mother is leaving him. Actually, she's not. She's standing right here, and she'd like to speak with you. There was a pause. Then Mom's voice came on the line. Sarah, honey, I think we should all sit down and talk about this like a family. My heart sank. Mom, what are you doing? Your father explained everything. There are two sides to every story, sweetheart. And I think maybe you've been misled by some disgruntled former clients who... Mom, no. Don't do this. You saw the evidence. You know the truth. I know your father isn't perfect, but neither am I. Neither are you. We all make mistakes, and I think we can work through this as a family if we just... He got to you. I felt like I couldn't breathe. In the 2 hours since you left my apartment, he convinced you to stand by him. Sarah, please, come to the house. Let's talk about this calmly. Put Dad back on the phone. Pause, then his voice. Hello, sweetheart. What did you tell her? The truth. That you found some confusing documents you didn't understand. That you've been under a lot of stress. That some people with grudges against me have been filling your head with lies. She saw the victim testimonies. She knows about Jennifer and Ryan. She knows I made mistakes. Had an affair I'm deeply ashamed of. But people make mistakes in marriages, Sarah. That doesn't make me a criminal. You stole millions of dollars. I made risky investments that didn't pan out. That's not theft, that's business. And your mother understands that now. The question is, do you? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In less than 3 hours, he'd completely turned her around. Convinced her that everything she'd seen with her own eyes was somehow wrong. That I was the problem. You're not going to get away with this, I said. Sarah, I love you. You're my daughter. But if you try to destroy me with false accusations, I'll have no choice but to defend myself. And that means prosecuting you for the crimes you've committed, breaking into my private files, stealing confidential documents, attempting extortion. Do you really want to go to prison to pursue this vendetta? It's not a vendetta. It's justice. Then take your evidence to the police. Right now. If I'm really such a monster, they'll investigate and arrest me. But you won't do that, will you? Because you know your case is weak. Built on out-of-context documents and the word of bitter people looking for someone to blame for their bad investments. I have your offshore account numbers. Your emails with Jennifer. Everything. Obtained illegally. Inadmissible in court. Your friend Marcus helped you break encryption. That's a federal crime right there. So go ahead, Sarah. Go to the police. And watch them arrest you instead. My hands were shaking. I hate you. No, you don't. You're confused and angry, and people have manipulated you. But I forgive you. That's what fathers do. We forgive our children when they make mistakes. Now come home. Let's work this out as a family. I hung up, sat there staring at my phone, feeling like the world had tilted sideways. He'd outmaneuvered me. In less than a day, he'd lawyered up, turned my mother against me, and found a way to make me the criminal. And the worst part? He might be right about the evidence. I'd obtained it illegally, broken into his encrypted files. Marcus could be charged with computer fraud. None of it might be admissible in court. I called Marcus. We have a problem. After I explained, he was quiet for a long time. He's good. I'll give him that. What do? I don't know. If his lawyer's right about the evidence being inadmissible, we might not be able to prove anything in court. And if he really does press charges against us for how we obtained it, I can't let him win. Sarah, maybe we need to think about this differently. If we can't use the courts, what other options do we have? What do you mean? Public opinion, social media, the court of public perception. Release everything online. Let people decide for themselves. His lawyer said he'd sue me for defamation. Let him. Truth is a defense against defamation. And once it's out there, it's out there. Even if he sues you, even if he wins, everyone will have already seen it. The damage will be done. It was risky, dangerous, could still result in me being arrested or sued into oblivion. But Marcus was right. Once the information was public, there was no taking it back. I need to talk to Mom one more time, I said. Face to face. Without Dad there. If she really believes his lies, if she's really going to stand by him, I need to hear it from her directly. And if she has, then I do it anyway. Release everything. Damn the consequences. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't about me. It wasn't even about my mother. It was about Linda Patterson and her daughter Emily. About Maria Chun and her son. About all the people whose lives my father had destroyed. And if I had to sacrifice everything, my family, my future, my freedom, to make sure they got justice, then that's what I'd do. But first, I needed to know if my mother was truly lost. Or if there was still a chance to save her from the web of lies my father was spinning. Hashtag the silent betrayal part 9. The calculated exposure. I spent 3 days planning the perfect execution. Not revenge, though that's what it felt like. Not just exposure, though that's what I called it. What I was planning was systematic destruction. The complete and total annihilation of Richard Monroe's carefully constructed life. Marcus tried to talk me into waiting. Sarah, if you do this now, you could go to prison. Let's find another way. There is no other way. He's got lawyers. He's got my mother. He's covering his tracks. Every day I wait, he gets stronger and the evidence gets weaker. But the legal consequences. I don't care. And I meant it. Those people deserve justice. If I have to go to prison to give it to them, fine. At least I'll be able to sleep at night. Tony, the private investigator, had been tracking Dad's movements. In 3 days, he'd met with 4 different lawyers, visited 2 banks, and had dinner with 3 city council members. He wasn't preparing to make restitution. He was building a defense and calling in favors. Mom wouldn't take my calls. I went to the house twice. She wouldn't answer the door. The 3rd time, Dad answered instead. Sarah, come to your senses yet. I looked at him standing in the doorway of the house I'd grown up in, the house bought with stolen money, and felt nothing. No love, no hate, just cold determination. I want to see Mom. She doesn't want to see you. You've caused her a lot of pain with these accusations. Let me hear that from her. He smiled. That charming smile that had convinced hundreds of people to trust him with their money. She's resting. The stress you've put her under has made her ill. You mean the stress you've put her under by lying to her for 35 years? Is that what you're going with? The dutiful daughter trying to save her mother. He leaned against the doorframe. Here's what I think, Sarah. I think you're angry about Jennifer and Ryan. I think you feel betrayed, and you're lashing out. That's understandable. But trying to destroy your own father over it? That's just vindictive. This isn't about Jennifer, isn't it? You found out you have a brother, and you can't handle not being the only child anymore. So you're manufacturing this whole elaborate conspiracy theory to punish me. The gaslighting was masterful. If I hadn't seen the evidence myself, I might have believed him. I'm giving you one last chance, I said. Make it right. Pay back the victims. Turn yourself in. Show some actual remorse. Do that and I'll advocate for leniency. I'll tell the courts you tried to fix things. Or what? You'll release your illegally obtained documents? Good luck with that, sweetheart. My lawyers are already preparing the countersuit. You'll be the one in handcuffs, not me. We'll see. I turned to leave, then stopped. Dad? Just answer me one thing. Did you ever actually love me? Or was I just part of your cover story? For a moment, just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret? Guilt? But then it was gone, replaced by that practice charm. Of course I love you, Sarah. I always have. That's why this hurts so much. Seeing my own daughter turn against me. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. I walked away. Didn't look back. That night I finalized my plan. The annual Hartford Business Excellence Awards Gala was in 3 days. 500 people, including city officials, business leaders, media outlets, and every prominent family in the area. And Richard Monroe was receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award. It was perfect, poetic even. I called Marcus. I need your help with something big. How big? I'm going to that gala, and I'm going to show everyone exactly who my father really is. Sarah, that's insane. Security will. I'm his daughter. I'll be expected to be there. No one will question it. What are you planning? Dad's supposed to give an acceptance speech. I'm going to give one instead. I'll have a flash drive with all the evidence, videos, documents, everything. I'll plug it into their AV system and play it for the entire room. They'll shut it down the moment they realize what's happening. Maybe. But it only takes 30 seconds of Linda Patterson's testimony to make an impact. 60 seconds of financial records. 2 minutes to destroy him completely. And even if they cut it off, everyone will have seen enough. The press will be there. It'll be recorded. It'll go viral. Marcus was quiet. This is really happening. This is really happening. Are you in? You know I am. What do you need? We spent the next 3 days preparing. Marcus created a video presentation that was impossible to ignore. Victim testimonies edited together with financial documents, dates, amounts. Clear, concise, devastating. The evidence was irrefutable. We also created a backup plan. If I couldn't get to the AV system, Marcus would live stream the whole thing from the audience. And we'd upload everything to multiple platforms simultaneously: YouTube, social media, news outlets. By the time Dad's lawyers could get injunctions, millions of people would have already seen it. I bought a dress for the gala. Red, Dad's least favorite color, on me. He always said it made me look aggressive. Perfect. The night before the event, Mom finally called. Sarah. Her voice was small, broken. Mom, I need you to know. I don't believe him. About you being vindictive or jealous or any of it. I know you're telling the truth. Hope flared in my chest. Then leave him. Come stay with me. We'll figure this out together. I can't. What do you mean you can't? I'm scared, Sarah. Terrified. He's different since you confronted him. cold. Sometimes I catch him looking at me like I'm a problem he needs to solve. And his lawyer told me if I try to leave, if I try to help you, I'll be implicated in his crimes. They'll say I knew all along. I could go to prison. That's a scare tactic. You're not going to prison for his crimes. How do you know? They froze our bank accounts yesterday. Said it's standard procedure for the investigation. But Sarah, I don't have access to anything. No money, no credit cards, nothing. I'm completely dependent on him. My heart sank. He'd trapped her. Financially, legally, psychologically. She was his prisoner. The gala is tomorrow night, I said. After tomorrow, none of this will matter. He'll be exposed. You'll be free. What are you planning? It's better if you don't know. But Mom, whatever happens tomorrow, whatever you see or hear, know that I love you. And I'm doing this for all the right reasons. I know, baby. I know. Just be careful. Your father is dangerous when he's cornered. I will. I love you. I love you too. The night of the gala, I arrived early. Security waved me through. The Monroe daughter, of course she's on the list. I found my table, made small talk with people who had no idea what was coming. Dad arrived with Mom on his arm. She looked beautiful but hollow. He looked triumphant. They made their rounds, accepting congratulations, posing for photos. The perfect couple. He saw me across the room. Our eyes met. He raised his glass in a mock toast. I smiled back. Let him think he'd won. Marcus was 3 tables away, camera ready. Tony, the investigator, was positioned near the exits, just in case Dad tried to run. Dinner was served. Speeches began. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear anything. This was it. Point of no return. The mayor took the stage. And now for our Lifetime Achievement Award. This honor goes to someone who has exemplified business excellence, philanthropic dedication, and community leadership for over 2 decades. Please join me in welcoming Richard Monroe. Applause erupted. Dad stood, buttoned his jacket, walked confidently to the stage. He shook the mayor's hand, accepted the Crystal Award, moved to the microphone. Thank you so much. This is truly humbling. He started his speech. The same humble, charming routine. Thanking the community. Talking about the importance of giving back. Painting himself as a servant leader who just wanted to make the world better. I stood up. People nearby looked at me curiously. I walked toward the stage. Sarah? Dad faltered mid-sentence. What are you? I'm sorry to interrupt, I said loudly, climbing the stairs to the stage. But there's something everyone needs to know about Richard Monroe before we celebrate him any further. Security started moving toward me. The room had gone silent. Sarah, this isn't the time. Dad reached for my arm. I stepped away from him, pulled the flash drive from my clutch, walked to the AV podium where the technician sat looking confused. Play this, I told him. Now. Miss, I can't just play it, or I'll tell everyone in this room about the $50,000 Richard Monroe paid you last month to upgrade your mother's assisted living facility. The technician's face went white. He knew. He was one of Dad's bought men. Play it, I repeated. He hesitated, then plugged in the drive. The screens around the room flickered. Then Linda Patterson's face appeared, larger than life. My name is Linda Patterson. My husband David was murdered by Richard Monroe. Gasps from the crowd. Dad lunged for the AV system, but security, seeing the video, confused about what was happening, held him back. Linda's testimony played. Then Maria Chen's. Then the marshals. Victim after victim, story after story. The room was completely silent except for their voices. Then the financial documents appeared. Bank statements, transfer records, offshore accounts, 12 million, 15 million, 20 million. The amounts kept climbing. Turn it off. Dad was shouting. This is defamation. This is. But no one was listening to him. Everyone was watching the screens, watching the truth unfold. Photos of Jennifer and Ryan appeared. Emails between Dad and Jennifer. 17 years of lies. More financial documents. More victims. More evidence. It ran for exactly 7 minutes before security finally managed to shut it down. But 7 minutes was enough. The room exploded. People shouting. Reporters rushing toward Dad with cameras and microphones. The mayor backing away like Dad was radioactive. Mom was at the base of the stage crying. Our eyes met. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." I mouthed back, "I know." Dad stood frozen at the microphone, his crystal award still in his hands, watching his entire life implode in real time. Then he turned to me, and the look in his eyes, pure hatred. "You have no idea what you've just done," he said quietly, so quietly only I could hear over the chaos. "I know exactly what I've done. I've exposed a monster. You've destroyed your own family. Your mother will lose everything. You'll be investigated, possibly prosecuted. All those people you think you're helping, they still won't get their money back. You've accomplished nothing except revenge. Then I'll live with that." Police officers were pushing through the crowd now. Someone had called them. "Good. Richard Monroe," one officer said. "We need you to come with us for questioning." "I'm not saying anything without my lawyer." "That's your right, sir." They led him away in handcuffs. Not arrested yet, just detained for questioning. But everyone saw it. Every phone in the room was recording. By morning, it would be everywhere. I stood on that stage and watched my father be led away, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just hollow exhaustion. Marcus appeared at my side. "Sarah, we need to go. His lawyers are probably already calling the police about you. Let them." "Sarah, I'm not running. I did what I had to do. Now I'll face the consequences." Mom pushed through the crowd to the stage. She looked at me, then at the screens that were now blank. Then she did something I didn't expect. She hugged me. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being braver than I could be, for telling the truth even when it cost you everything." "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Don't be. I should have left him years ago. I should have seen, should have acted. You did what I couldn't, what I should have done." She pulled back, wiping her tears. "Whatever happens now, we'll face it together. You and me. Okay? Okay." The police approached me next. "Miss Monroe, we need to ask you some questions about how you obtained this evidence." "I understand. I'll tell you everything." As they led me out of the ballroom, not in handcuffs, just for questioning, I looked back one time. 500 people stood in clusters, talking urgently, phones out, spreading the story. The mayor was doing damage control. Reporters were already filing their stories. And on every screen in the room, frozen on the last frame of my presentation, was a simple message. Justice for the victims of Richard Monroe. All evidence has been submitted to the FBI, SEC, and local authorities. This is not revenge. This is accountability. Tomorrow everything would change. The investigations would begin. The legal battles. The media circus. My father would probably go to prison. My mother and I would have to rebuild from nothing. But tonight I'd done what I set out to do. I'd exposed the truth. And no matter what happened next, no one could take that away. 6 months later, I sat in a coffee shop across from Linda Patterson and her daughter Emily. Emily was smiling, actually smiling, for the first time since I'd met her. The surgery had been successful. Her spine was straight. She could stand without pain, walk without that telltale curve that had marked her for years. "The doctors say she'll need physical therapy for another few months," Linda said, squeezing her daughter's hand. "But she's already so much better. She even joined the school volleyball team." "That's wonderful," I said, and meant it. "It's because of you," Linda continued, "because you had the courage to do what you did." I shook my head. "I just told the truth. The FBI did the rest." But that wasn't entirely accurate. The truth was messier, more complicated than that simple statement. The night of the gala, I'd been questioned by police for 6 hours. They'd wanted to know everything. How I'd obtained the evidence, who had helped me, whether I'd broken any laws. I'd told them the truth. Yes, I'd accessed my father's encrypted files without permission. Yes, Marcus had helped me decrypt them. Yes, I knew it was illegal. Dad's lawyers had tried to have me arrested immediately. Computer fraud, theft, extortion, they were still claiming I'd tried to blackmail him. But the FBI had taken one look at the evidence I'd provided and decided they had bigger problems than my methods. Within 48 hours, they'd raided Dad's offices, his home, his offshore accounts. They'd found everything. Years of financial crimes. Dozens more victims I hadn't even known about. A web of corruption that extended far beyond what I'd discovered. The lead investigator, Agent Sarah Chun, had sat me down after a week. "What you did was illegal," she'd said bluntly. "Under normal circumstances, we'd be prosecuting you. But the evidence you provided has led to the biggest white-collar crime bust in state history. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to cooperate fully with our investigation. You're going to testify if we need you to. And in exchange, we're not pressing charges." "What about Marcus?" "Same deal. But Sarah, don't ever do anything like this again. You got lucky. Next time, you go to prison." "There won't be a next time." "Good." Dad, on the other hand, hadn't been so lucky. The charges had piled up. Wire fraud, securities fraud, money laundering, tax evasion, identity theft. 47 counts in total. His lawyers had tried everything, claiming the evidence was inadmissible, that he was being targeted, that his daughter had manufactured everything out of spite. None of it worked. 3 months after the gala, Richard Monroe pleaded guilty to 28 felony counts as part of a plea deal. He was sentenced to 23 years in federal prison. At 60 years old, he'd likely die behind bars. I'd gone to the sentencing, sat in the back of the courtroom and watched him in his orange jumpsuit, looking smaller somehow, diminished. The judge had asked if he had anything to say. "I'm sorry," he'd said. "Not to the victims. Not to Mom or me. Just, I'm sorry." Empty words that meant nothing. Then the judge had asked if any victims wanted to make statements. Linda Patterson had stood up. Then Maria Chin. Then the Marshalls. Then James Wheeler. One by one, they told their stories to the court. Told the judge what Richard Monroe had taken from them. When it was over, when the gavel had fallen and Dad was being led away, he'd looked back at me one last time. Our eyes had met. I'd waited for some final word, some acknowledgement. Anything that would tell me the father I'd loved had been real, even if just for a moment. But he'd just turned away, disappeared through the door without a word. That's when I'd finally understood. He'd never existed. The father I'd loved was a fiction. A character Richard Monroe had played to maintain his cover. And now that the show was over, that character was gone. Mom had cried at the sentencing. Not for him, for the life she'd lost. The 35 years she'd never get back. The aftermath for her had been brutal. The house was seized as proceeds of crime. Her bank accounts frozen and then drained to pay restitution to victims. She'd lost everything. Her home, her savings, her friends who couldn't separate her from Richard's crimes. She'd moved in with me like I'd offered. My tiny one-bedroom apartment suddenly housed 2 people and a cat. It was cramped and uncomfortable, and sometimes we drove each other crazy. But we were surviving. Mom had gotten a job, her first in 30 years, working as a receptionist at a dental office. The pay was terrible, the work boring, but she'd attacked it with determination I'd never seen in her before. "I wasted 35 years depending on a man," she told me one night over cheap takeout. "I'm never doing that again. Never." She'd also started therapy, working through the trauma, the guilt, the shame of having lived off stolen money without knowing. Some days were better than others. "I keep thinking about all those people," she'd say. "All those families we destroyed without even knowing. How do I live with that?" "The same way I do," I'd tell her. "We make sure they get every penny back. We tell their stories. We make sure Dad's crimes are never forgotten." And that's what we'd done. The FBI had recovered $18 million from Dad's offshore accounts. It wasn't everything. Some money was hidden too well, some had been spent. But it was something. A victims' compensation fund had been established. Every person Dad had defrauded was getting their money back, plus interest. Linda Patterson had been one of the first. Emily's surgery had been fully funded. Linda had gotten her house back, her savings restored. Maria Chun had gotten her restaurant back. Or rather, enough money to start over. She'd opened a new place called Chen's Garden Reborn. I'd gone to the opening. She cried when she saw me, pulled me into a hug, and said, "Thank you. Thank you for giving me my life back." The Marshalls had their retirement fund restored. They'd moved out of their daughter's basement, bought a small condo, and were finally living the retirement they'd planned for. Robert's health had improved. Susan's diabetes was under control. They'd even gone to their granddaughter's wedding. James Wheeler had used his restitution to start a new company. He'd sent me an email last month. "I'm not where I was, but I'm building again. And this time, I know what predators look like." Not everyone had happy endings. David Patterson was still dead. Maria's relationship with her son was still strained. Some damage couldn't be undone with money. But it was something. It was justice, imperfect and incomplete, but justice nonetheless. As for Jennifer Morrison and Ryan, that had been complicated. I'd met them 2 months after the sentencing. Jennifer had reached out, said Ryan wanted to meet his sister. We'd met at a park. Ryan was shy at first, this 15-year-old kid who looked so much like Dad had hurt. But he was nothing like him. He was sweet, kind, confused about everything that had happened. "I don't understand," he'd said. "My dad was always good to me. He never missed my games. He helped with homework. He was a good dad. To you he was..." I'd agreed. That's the thing about people like him. They're not evil all the time. Sometimes they're charming and loving and seem perfect. That's what makes them dangerous. Do you hate him? I thought about that. I don't know. I hate what he did. I hate how many people he hurt. But the person I hate might not even be real. So what am I hating? A ghost? A character he played? Ryan had nodded like he understood. But I knew he didn't. Not really. He'd lost his father too, but in a different way. Jennifer had apologized to me. I should have left him years ago. Should have made him tell your mother the truth. I was selfish. You were manipulated, I'd corrected. He lied to you just like he lied to everyone else. We weren't close, Jennifer, Ryan, and I, but we talked occasionally. Tried to navigate this strange reality where we were connected by the same man who'd hurt us all in different ways. My own life had changed in ways I never expected. I'd lost my job. The company didn't want the publicity. Lost most of my friends. People were uncomfortable around me now, like my father's crimes were contagious. But I'd gained something too. A sense of purpose I'd never had before. I'd started a nonprofit, the Truth Project. We helped victims of financial fraud navigate the complex process of reporting crimes and recovering assets. We connected them with lawyers, investigators, resources. We told their stories. Linda Patterson was on our board. So was Maria Chin. Marcus ran our tech division. Mom handled administration. It wasn't glamorous. The pay was terrible. I made less than half what I'd made in marketing. My apartment was still tiny. My car was 8 years old. I ate a lot of ramen. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I was doing something that mattered. The media had been relentless for months. My face was everywhere. The daughter who exposed her father's crimes. Some people called me a hero. Others called me a traitor. Family values advocates said I'd betrayed the sacred bond of family. Victims' rights groups gave me awards. I tried to ignore all of it. This wasn't about me being a hero or a villain. This was about the people Dad had hurt finally getting justice. Dr. Wells, my therapist, helped me process everything. "How do you feel?" she'd ask every session. "I don't know," I'd answer honestly. "Relieved, I guess. Sad. Angry. Proud. Guilty. All of it at once." Guilty about what? That I lived such a privileged life while Dad's victims were suffering. That I didn't see it sooner. That some part of me still loves the father who never existed. Those feelings are all valid. You can grieve for the father you thought you had while being glad you stopped the father you actually had. That became my mantra. I could hold both truths at once. Now, sitting across from Linda and Emily, watching them smile and laugh and plan for a future that seemed possible again, I felt something close to peace. What are you going to do now? Linda asked me. With the non-profit, are you going to expand? Maybe. We've got 3 other cases we're working on right now. People who saw the news coverage and realized they'd been victimized too. It's overwhelming, honestly. There are so many predators out there, and so few people willing to expose them. Because it's hard, Linda said. Because it costs everything. Not everyone is brave enough to do what you did. I don't know if it was bravery or just stubbornness. Does it matter? The result is the same. Emily spoke up, her voice quiet but clear. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you regret it? Exposing him? I thought about that. Really thought about it. Did I regret losing my family? Losing my father to prison and my mother to trauma? Losing my old life, my job, my friends? Did I regret the sleepless nights? The death threats from Dad's supporters? The constant legal battles? Did I regret the way people looked at me now? Some with admiration, some with judgment, some with pity? No, I said finally. I don't regret it. I regret that it was necessary. I regret that my father was the kind of person who forced me to make that choice. But I don't regret telling the truth. Truth is the only thing that matters in the end. Even when it costs you everything? Especially then. Emily smiled. I want to be like you when I grow up. No, I said gently. Be better than me. Be the kind of person who doesn't have to make these choices because you're brave enough to speak up before things get this bad. Be the kind of person who sees the warning signs and acts on them. Be the kind of person who values truth over comfort from the very beginning. I'll try, she promised. After they left, I sat alone in the coffee shop for a while, watching people go about their normal lives. Normal people with normal problems who'd never have to expose their own father's crimes. I envied them sometimes, the simplicity of their lives. But then I thought about Linda and Emily, about Maria rebuilding her restaurant, about the Marshalls finally enjoying retirement, about James Wheeler starting over. And I thought, this is what justice looks like. Not perfect, not pretty, not without cost, but real. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Dinner tonight? I'm making your favorite. I smiled. Mom's cooking had gotten a lot better now that she actually had to do it herself. Another unexpected silver lining. Sounds perfect, I texted back. I gathered my things, left the coffee shop, stepped out into the afternoon sun. Somewhere, my father was in a prison cell, probably still convinced he was the victim, still believing he'd done nothing wrong. Narcissists never really see their own crimes clearly. Somewhere, his victims were rebuilding their lives. Slowly, painfully, but rebuilding. And me? I was somewhere in between. Not a hero, not a villain. Just a daughter who'd discovered the truth and decided it mattered more than the comfortable lie. I'd sacrificed everything. My family, my future. The perfect life I'd thought I had. But I'd gained something too. The ability to sleep at night. The knowledge that when it mattered most, I'd chosen truth over comfort, justice over family loyalty, what was right over what was easy. And in the end, that had to be enough. Because it was all I had left. The truth, painful and costly and absolutely necessary. The truth that had destroyed my father's empire and freed his victims. The truth that had shattered my perfect life but given me a real one. As I walked home through the city streets, I thought about something Dr. Wells had said in our last session. Heroes aren't people who don't feel fear or doubt. Heroes are people who feel all of that and act anyway. I didn't know if I was a hero, but I knew I'd done the right thing. And for now, in this imperfect aftermath of destruction and rebuilding, that was enough. It had to be the end.